What's up, guys? It's Arid American here. I wanted to do a comprehensive instructional video on genealogy and all the basics. You guys can honestly just know exactly what to do, like a little crash course, give you a bunch of knowledge that'll get you squared away. That way you can just investigate, right? I can give you a lot of the basic facts in this probably 30-ish minute video. Maybe it'll be shorter, maybe it'll be longer, but we'll figure that out. Now, I highly, highly recommend Ancestry.com. It's an excellent site. It costs like, if you get on a special during a holiday, you can get the membership discounted. So it probably run you like maybe anywhere from $18 to $25 a month at that point. But otherwise, it costs $40 a month because you have to get the world membership, I believe, because, we live in the US, or a lot of us watching this video. So therefore, you'll have to pay the $40 a month to access the world membership on it, if you don't get on a special, because you need it, because Mexico is not part of the United States, and the first category only allows you to look at U.S. records for that first subscription plan. So even if you don't want to get the subscription, that's fine. I really recommend you build your tree here on this website. The reason for that is because on FamilySearch.org, which is another website I'm going to introduce, you can make your tree there, but it's public, so anyone can get on that and edit your tree on FamilySearch, which is really problematic. They can delete members. They can add people that are incorrect. They can really fuck up everything. And plenty of people have brought this up as a nightmare that has happened to them. So, even if you don't use the membership genealogy services for Ancestry.com, I still recommend putting your tree on here just for privacy reasons and just utilizing it. You can add as many people and attach records and shit like that to the profiles. Like, for example, I'll show you here my great-grandfather Cipriano Salcedo. So I have all his basic information here, right? So, I can just add like little tabs like this, right? Like, let's say marriage, custom event, adoption, adult christening, etc., right? That doesn't cost money. You can add all that. You can post, links to whatever records. So you can just take a copied link. Like, let's say like this, you just copy and paste it, and you could just edit it, and you can do this, right? You can do that. And so you don't need to pay to do that. What you need to pay for is to look at the actual records. Like, if you didn't have the subscription, you wanted to open this up, it would take you to the membership page. But just at least keep your tree on here if you're not going to use the membership. But I do recommend the membership because there are some records that Ancestry.com has that FamilySearch.org does not have. I recommend using both. That's going to be your best bet to really have the best time with your genealogy research. So let me show you guys this. A lot of people ask, how can I get started? Well, first of all, I would recommend that you just fill out your tree as much as possible. Ask your family members, hey, what was the name of your grandparents, your great-grandparents, your great-great-grandparents? Ask your oldest living family member, even if they're not a direct ancestor, like it's not like your direct grandparent, even if it's like, let's say a great uncle, great aunt, they'll have that information, and then you apply it. Fill up your tree as much as possible. Get the pictures too. The pictures are a special treasure. I did not have any of these pictures when I was starting off, and I got these because I asked around with family members, and they're an absolute treasure. To be able to see who you come from is amazing. So get the pictures while you're at it, but the names is what's extremely important. Let's say that you just, let's say that somebody doesn't remember the names, right? Like, okay, well, I don't remember who the parents of your great-grandfather was. Let's say they just tell me that. That's fine. Like, a lot of the times, because of family documents, they may just have the birth certificate of a great grandparent, right? Or a great uncle. I mean, that would still work. But a great grandparent or a great, or they can have the death record, which is even more probable because those are later records that you can get your hands on. Now, this is my great-grandfather Cipriano. I actually had my aunt who lives in Mexico go to the government, and she actually was able to ask for like a new copy of his death certificate, and it stated his parents right there. Like they just issued it out. Same thing with his birth record. They issued that out as well here. He was born in 1925. I couldn't find this online to save my life. But when she went up to the municipal government, they were able to issue this. All she needed was like his name and the approximate date of his birth, which I supplied her with, and they found him in the system, or what they thought was him, and it was him. Sometimes they may be in the system with a different spelling, so just keep that in mind. They could try multiple spellings, or just try a more broad search versus a very specific search, because the more specified a search you run in like a search engine, depending on the website, the least likely you may be able to get some results. That's why you always want to start broad with your searches and then narrow them down to be very specific, so that way you can catch as many records as possible. But that's also is another option to bypass the whole, well, my family member doesn't remember like the parents of his grandparents. He doesn't remember this person or that person. That's fine. Go see if they have the death records for, the ancestors that they do know, or the birth record, or the marriage record. The marriage record will even state, important information like that. So that is what I recommend, and now it's a hack you can use. And actually, the reason I had her get the birth and death certificate was I was very confident in my genealogy because I had other records to tie him to his parents and other people. But at the same time, I was trying to do everything generation by generation because I was going to do the Portuguese citizenship, and I'm still in the freaking process for that. But they want very thorough documentation, so that's how I found that out, that you can still get documentation issued by the Mexican government even for a deceased family member like that. But you'd have to be in Mexico for that, or have family in Mexico that could go on your behalf. You can always sweeten the pot, offering them money if they didn't want to go do it on their own time. So yeah. So looking at his marriage record right here, a lot of times it'll pop up as hints. And what I wanted to say about hints, right, is when you start filling up your tree, they're going to pop up like this, right? They're going to pop up like this, like they'll suggest other records. In this case, it's not in this example, but they'll pop up with other records. And a large 50% of the time, if not more, those hints are completely erroneous. Like they're not your ancestor at all. So don't just like accept whatever hint and roll with it because you think it sounds good. Like you need to look at the actual records and verify this stuff before you continue on, because this is like the number one new mistake. I've already covered this on my TikTok, Arid American. But what I notice is a lot of people will just, they'll accept whatever hint and they'll just trace like all the way to like 1500 in less than an hour. And they'll be like, oh my God, I traced all the way to like this king. And it's like, no, you didn't. You don't have any supporting evidence to back up nothing. Like you just accepted like whatever hint because of some other erroneous tree somebody else built in the system. And that's what people do. Like they'll get here on these trees that are already built. And a lot of these trees are just erroneous. Some of them do have good information, but again, you have to verify and see where are they getting that information? Like what record is substantiating their claim? Like, let's say I just didn't have Cipriano's father and mother. Okay, well then, I got to find that, right? Let's say this person had his father and mother, supposed father and mother listed. I would have to find a record in this person's tree. Like I'm accessing it right now. And I'd have to be like, okay, well, how did they find that information? Like, you could always send them a message like on Ancestry and just be like, hey, how do you have that information? Sometimes people will answer, sometimes they won't. So there is that. But maybe they'll just be like, hey, the oral history, this person remembered this information and that's how we got it. Or they don't have any information at all and it's not substantiated in any way. And that's what you mostly run into. And that's where, you get a little bit into some trouble. So I did want to put that words of caution out there. Okay. Now, let me introduce this. Okay. Let me introduce this. This is FamilySearch.org. You do not need to pay to access the site or to use the records, to look at their microfilms. None of that crap. All right. And if English ain't your native language, great. You could change it to any of these other languages. So you don't have to keep it in English. But I'm going to show you guys a few strategies you can utilize here to run your searches. Okay. So for example, let me share this tab right here. You can go to the records. So you get here by going to search records and then you'd wind up here. So I'm going to find that marriage record of Cipriano, right? So let's just say you knew your great grandparents' names. And so you're just going to type them in, right? You're just going to type them in and you know that they're from Mexico, which make things really easy. I was tracing Texas, like, please, excuse me. I was tracing Texas for somebody. That's why I had it in my brain. You just type in, you just fill this out, try to go like broad and then later you can narrow down. But see, when I search on my great grandparents, their marriage record from 1946 pops up immediately. And, a lot of the stuff is already indexed, like the parents' names, right? And same thing, if you click on Julia Garcia's name right here, it'll show her perspective, but from her end. So then her parents are going to be listed, Jose Garcia. Pala de Jesús cumplido. So yeah, regardless of what the index says, sometimes they can get things wrong. So I always recommend that you go into the record itself and you examine everything. You just give it a good read and you verify that the information in here is correct, like with what it was indexed. Okay. And here you'll have other like tidbits of information, like, oh, right here is saying, originator from Esperanzas Coahuila, which would be the Julia Garcia ancestor of mine, right? And a lot of the times these records will span multiple pages, like it begins over on the side and it continues on well into the next page. So keep that in mind. Sometimes these records are like that. Sometimes it'll say a record is indexed on one page and it's not. It's like, like one sentence that started at the bottom of the page. And so technically it is, but you'd have to click on the next page and then the index information goes away. But that's where you're just going to have to read and look at things, okay? So I just wanted to share that with you guys. So there you go. Now, there are some other things I wanted to go over, which is some more alternative strategies. I got to share my screen again because I exited out because, I'm a little special here. So, okay. You can search people up manually like I did in the record section, literally type in their name and stuff. But if you want to get a more like easy route, because you have it narrowed down, like the place that they're from, like the city and stuff, and you want to kind of minimize all the possible results that could pop up, you can go down here to collections and click on, you can just type in a collection. So for example, Coahuila church records or civil registration, right? So you can click on that and it'll only search this type of record, right? So it really narrows it down. So we could do the same thing. Cipriano Salcedo. And again, search up his wife, Julia Garcia. And we don't have to fill this out because, it's already narrowed down for us. So we just search this up. And there you go. The records pop up. But now, like, all these records will pertain mostly to the person you are looking for. And I did want to show you guys something. Sometimes, people's names are indexed wrong all the time on these sites. And, if you try alternative spellings, you can get more results. So I highly recommend you try alternative spellings. But one way to where you wouldn't have to worry so much about that is the following. Okay, so sometimes I've seen Salcedo put down as Salceda with an A at the end. If you didn't want to have to run two different searches, what you can do is just put an asterisk, and it's called a wild card, essentially. Any results with any possible letter at the end of Salced would pop up. So it can be Salcedo, A, E, whatever the hell, right? So you utilize the asterisk to get past the alternative spelling problem that you run into with these indexed people on these sites. That is something I learned in the Everything Guide to Genealogy, which I recommend buying that book. It's actually pretty freaking good. So, all right. So I wanted to recommend this book. I took a formal genealogy principles course from Boston University, and one of my instructors was Kimberly Powell, and it was a pretty good course. But a lot of useful information is in this book. I really recommend you guys buy it. It's really not that expensive. It's $20 off Amazon if you want a brand new copy. But if you want a used copy, like, you can certainly get it off of like thrift books or other places for like $7, $8 or whatever. I think it's like close to 200 pages. But the thing is, like, it's in really large font. So honestly, you could fly through it very, very fast. And it does go over that wildcard searches and different methods for searching that I mentioned. Now, this is geared towards American genealogy, but this could still be pertinent to some of you because, some of you have, recent generations in Texas or California or New Mexico. And so you would have to still do American genealogy, U.S.-based genealogy before you can trace back to Mexico. And then once you're in Mexico, things, in my opinion, get way easier. Mexico is much better documented than the United States, from my experience. So it's still useful to know that information. So I recommend it. But even apart from the American genealogy aspect, if it doesn't apply to you, that's fine. It does have other useful information on how to run searches and search techniques, which the pros utilize. So I highly recommend that you do take a look at this right here. Now back to FamilySearch. This principle is going to also apply to Ancestry.com, but I want to show it first on FamilySearch here. A lot of times when you run these record searches and you start examining the records, you look at the index. This is the index file, right? And then if you click on the record itself, that's the actual primary source when you go in there and you can actually like read everything. Okay. So a lot of times there are already trees constructed. These are worth the trouble to look at. But before I go there, I wanted to point out this similar record section. A lot of times really good records will pop up on different indexes, but they won't pop up in others. So I recommend clicking on every single similar record and just taking a glance and seeing if it applies to you. And sometimes these will be golden nuggets. Like you'll find the birth certificate of your actual like direct ancestor, or the baptism or the marriage or the death. And it'll list the parents' names, the next generation or more, maybe sometimes grandparents, and it'll let you continue to go back in time. So what I recommend for the similar records is to always review them, but to always click on view record, right? And just let that take you to the next record. And then there'll be another section of similar records. And most of the time it can be some of the same records being like suggested over and over again. But literally, you just want to take a look and see what else is suggested. So that's exactly it. All right, the last set. See, I'm still like working out the kinks of the StreamYard thing. The last time it didn't go to the other record when I clicked on it. Like the shared screen still stayed on the other one. That's why I started sounding a little unsure myself. But I'm not re-recording because this is already going to be a long recording. But I am going to show you guys the tree option here. Like I said, this is just a tree that was attached to that other record, which you can just take a glance at and see what their information is. It'll be filled out from another person's tree. Again, don't just follow everything they have. A lot of times it can be wrong. You got to check the sources. Like, how do they got this information? Again, so over here you see 2 records shown. And you can see the index information. Again, the similar records part right here, again, which you can take a glance at. And if you click on it, it'll take you to another screen. And there you go. So I recommend always looking through the similar records, every single one, because different records may be suggested that could be pertinent to your search. So it is highly important to do that. So I just wanted to show an example of this similar records thing as well on Ancestry.com. You click on view record right here, and it'll open it up. All right, I'm switching tabs. I ain't going to make that same mistake. All right, so you see the suggested records section right here. Again, if you click on one of these, okay, it'll take you to that record, and then there'll be other suggested records. Sometimes it's the same ones, but a lot of times additional suggested records could pop up that can be relevant. So I really recommend just reviewing that, okay? It's pretty important stuff. All right, and so I also wanted to show you guys the searches. How do the searches work on Ancestry.com, right? So a lot of times you can just go to the profile. This is my favorite way to do it, is I just click on search on Ancestry. It already has the profile in mind, populated, okay? So sorry, my computer is an old little laptop that I need to update. It's been pissing me off. But either way, this is what pops up, right? A lot of these different records, you can go browse through them. There'll be other member records like uploaded as well. Like these are all mine. I literally uploaded all these. So this would help somebody else tracing. They'd have to just review it and verify, right? But you'll have all these other records that you can go ahead and look through. Now, this is just when you click search, it'll pop up any other stuff, right? And a lot of it won't have anything to do with your actual ancestor, like this Texas one. My ancestor's never in Texas. Like that great-grandfather was never there. All that, right? So you can narrow it down by going over here, clicking like North America, just to narrow things down. Mexico, right? And then for the Mexico section, you can click on like the state. So Coahuila, you can click on that, and it really narrows it down. Or if you wanted to go even more narrow, you could go to census, birth, marriage, death, census and voter lists, whatever, right? So that's one way of running searches on Ancestry.com. This other way of doing it is you go up to search right here. My bad. You go up here and you can click a category. You can do it the other way, but for example, you can click census and voter lists. Again, this would be as if you were like tracing out of like Texas or whatever. It would still apply to Mexico. Mexico had their own censuses, but just as an example, if you were tracing in Texas and you wanted to look at the census of your ancestor for the 1920s or 1910s, you can click on this category right here, U.S. federal census, and then you can click on specific census that you want to search. In this case, let's say 1920. You can type in whatever ancestor it is. You could choose a state, and you can narrow it down. And so in this way, you can run very precise searches. Again, it's kind of like a mix. I know I said like you want to start general and broad. Yes, but you want to have a good mix. Like you don't want it to be too general because it's like, why do you want 500 results popping up of like your ancestor on this a possible ancestor with the same name, across like 49 other states when you know exactly what state they were in back then, right? Or you just had knowledge of that. Or generally they stay in the same state, so you want to check on that state first, right? So you want to mix. Want to have a good balance. My bad, a good balance of generality and specificity. I probably fucked that up, but it's all good. So that's what I would recommend here, okay, for this. Now, let me just share a couple of resources with you guys. I highly recommend you join this group, Mexican Genealogy. It's headed by Moises Garza. Very knowledgeable guys. Guy's absolute Chad. He's awesome. If you go in here, you ask questions, a lot of people are willing to help you. A lot of experienced genealogists, or you have beginners as well asking questions. If you don't know how to read the Spanish cursive, you can like post a record and ask for help, and people will, they'll translate it for you. They'll tell you what it says. That's how I started. I mean, I didn't know what the hell the record said, and I had to learn over time, develop that Sharingan, right? So I really recommend going on here. That's how I learned a crap ton of my knowledge, honestly, is just looking through here. And this is a very welcoming, amazing group. I post on here, so you might see my ass pop up here. But yeah, and here's another resource as well. Last names of Nuevo Leon. A lot of my audience is norteños. I'm norteño. I was born in Coahuila. A lot of books have been done by Moises Garza over the origin of a lot of surnames in the north. And even though if you were born, let's say in Tamaulipas or Coahuila, you can have surnames that trace back to Nuevo Leon because that was one of the popular places founded back there in time. So he has a wide selection of books. They're $60. So, I know that can be hefty for some people, but that's okay. He has like membership options. So you can go to subscriptions right here and, you can do a yearly one, so it costs $109, lifetime one-time payment of $500 or a monthly payment of $15, so like, hey, you got some good options. You got some really, really good options right here when he says Godsa, and he's just done an amazing job, just making all of this wide selection of books. And of course, he'll even give a brief summary about some of these surnames right here and what he does. And so a lot of the times, you always want to double check everything whenever you're tracing. But a lot of times, if you can just trace back to one of the generations he's traced, he's very experienced, generally speaking, like 99% of the time, I mean, I'm pretty sure probably 100%, it'll all be accurate. Once you get to that section, you can just basically copy from the book. But the only thing I tell you is just as a genealogist is you always just want to verify it yourself or just see what the source is. But Moises Garza, he does list his sources in the back in the index. So you can literally just reference the same sources. So that is something I wanted to point out. All right, I wanted to show this site too. This is going to be useful for a lot of you guys, especially if you're tracing your European ancestors. And you don't necessarily need to be from northern Mexico for this to be useful, although from northern Mexico, it will be extremely useful. It's called guadalajaradispensas.com. Okay, so what is a dispensa? A dispensa was basically an authorization granted from the Catholic Church, allowing people that were distantly related to marry. So, for example, maybe they shared the same great grandfather, right? And so they were kin, but it was like further back. Then the Catholic Church would, they'll issue a dispensa either granting this petition or not granting it. So they may or may not allow them to marry. Now, why is this useful? The reason is because they were trying to see the degree of blood relation. They would often, they would talk about multiple generations worth of people's names were listed. And that stuff is extremely important. It's like a treasure trove, right? So here on this one, I just ran a search. I went up here, right? My bad. Okay, this is ridiculous. I went up here to this search box and I searched them up. And then I click Control F, that way I don't waste so much time. And then, I click down and then I just go through the results right here. Now, again, if you don't see anything pop up immediately when you type stuff in with Control F, try some alternative spellings because sometimes they could be as, for example, this is Pedro de la Garza. Maybe he was put down as Pedro Garza or some other variation. So you want to play around with that in case, that way any of these results can pop up. This right here is actually one of my ancestors right here, Pedro de la Garza Ana Diaz. I use this for like this side I used for my Portuguese citizenship application as well. So I did want to point out this resource, and it's for free. It's been done on a volunteer basis. So, thank God for people, right? I wanted to go over Nefi Arena Salazar. Honestly, I think he's probably the best Mexican genealogist I've ever seen. I call him the Gordon Ramsay of Mexican genealogy. Like, this guy is an absolute Chad. So he is accredited APG here from the U.S., but he was born in Mexico, and he studied Mexico. Then he has a bio, graduated from Brigham Young University, studied business management, but he also got a cert with family history research. And it just has a really good resume here for him. You can hire him. Excellent guy. The poster I keep showing off, he's the one that designed that poster, and he added like a little tidbit of investigation that I had not done on the Musca side of the family. But he is awesome. I actually used them to construct my report when I was trying to apply for citizenship with the Portuguese government, because he was just very experienced. And so while I could do the research and I knew how to get to that research and I had it all done, really, I needed someone that could give me even better sources and format the record exactly how I needed it, because, this is just a one-shot deal with the Portuguese government. You don't want it to fail, at least back then. Now the process is like really restricted. It's almost dead, basically. Just FYI. But that's why I hired him. But this guy is just amazing. And this is his website right here, Parentum. And he has a whole, process. Basically, it's like an initial interview, and like it talks about prices and stuff for getting him to start tracing for you. He does get really booked up, so just keep that in mind. Sometimes the response may not be the fastest, but he has a secretary, so there is that. And he is on TikTok as well. Although most of his content is in Spanish, he is going to start doing content in English. He's fluent in English. He's just absolutely massive. I'm jealous. I wish I had him on 21K. So I do get some of y'all that are like, well, how can I access your family tree to just take a look, because it's freaking amazing, right? I got like 1,500 people on here. So of course you're welcome to look over my tree, and maybe we have some common ancestors, and I have everything filled out very well. I always have a source for stuff. And if you ever have a doubt as to how I got somewhere, you could always send me a message and I'll clear it up. But I put it pretty obvious, what my sources are. They're there. So you can take a look and review after my stuff too, if you wanted to, if you had any doubts. But how do you find my tree on here? Easy. You just go to tree, you go up to trees, or whatever. Oh my God, I messed up. My bad, guys. You go up to search. I don't know where my head was in the clouds. You go up to search, you go to member search, you click on that shit, and you can search me up right here. Username. I put both my full name on here, like 2 last names. That way you can easily find me. It'd be Juan Zapata Salcedo, and then you can look at my trees here. This is at my actual tree. Some of this other stuff's like, some trees I've done for other people. Like clients of mine, but you want to look at the Zapata Salcedo family tree, and you can take a glance, and has a little summary right here of all my badass time spent on this tree. Dude, it's like over 1,000 hours. All right, an additional resource is if you go to the San Antonio Public Library, sometimes there are certain books that you want for scholarly sources, or they'll have certain books already done with certain genealogies, like the Garzas or other families, like Montemayor, right? And so it's hard to get your hands on some of these books because they're just not out there anymore, like just circulating or just for sale openly. And so in that case, you'd have to go to one of these libraries and take a look. But a lot of times, if you want to get a scan, just search up some libraries that some of these books are available at. One of this is San Antonio Public Library. And if you go to their section here, the Tejana genealogy section, you can ask them for help, and they can search a book for you, a specific ancestor, a specific page, and then they can just do a scan and email that to you. I've used this service before, so it's very, very useful. I highly recommend you do that, but that's more advanced type of genealogy right there. All right, so I hope that was helpful for you guys. Sorry for my occasional slip-ups. I was just trying to do this in one take with like pausing and all that shit, so sometimes I can slip up. But there you go. I hope this was helpful. If you got any other questions, drop it in the comment section. I could probably do a little video, or ask me on TikTok, and that'd be faster for me to just do a little a minute to 3-minute response on there. So hopefully this can help you guys get you going. I think it should. Oh shit, there is one more freaking thing that I did want to go over, actually. All right, last thing is I've had people ask me well, I can't read the cursive. How do you do it? Honestly, I learned the cursive just by analyzing it over time. So one strategy was at the beginning, I didn't know what the hell these records said. So I would just take a screenshot or a link to the record I'd post on Mexican Genealogy. I recommend you put the link because people are going to ask for that. And then people would tell me, they just transcribe it and say what it said. And so once they gave me like that information, I started going back and I started like just looking at things. And I was like, oh, okay, so they said that this one sentence said this. And then I would start trying to piece apart like the different letters. I learned how to write cursive back in like fourth and fifth grade, but then when I got to sixth grade, they were like, "Don't fucking use that shit." So then, I just I just forgot how to like really write it besides my name and reading it. I mean, I didn't really know how to read it much. I could when I first started, I could make out some things, but a lot of it I could not make out to save my fucking life. So that's what I just started doing. That was one strategy. The other strategy I used, which I recommend, and I started looking up like English cursive charts, Spanish cursive charts. It's like the same things, but it might be slightly different styles. So I just started looking at a bunch of cursive charts, and I'd have this pulled up, and then I'd have the record pulled up, and I would just compare. And over time, I was able to piece things out. Eventually, other things is like if you're confused over just one letter, you can look at the scribe's entry like on another record or another page, and you could then ascertain what he meant. So that's one strategy as well. But it just takes time. I just, stared at this shit enough over time to finally develop a Sharingan. And once I did, then it was great. And I was able to fucking read the shit. But another thing is like, you don't necessarily have to read the full record. Like you would want to, because there may be some additional information that you really need. But a lot of times you just need to look out for certain keywords. And you can go to FamilySearch and look at that list of keywords. But a lot of the times it's like, hija legítimo, hija natural, shit like that, or abuelos paternos, abuelos maternos, things like that. And obviously the cast terms like indio, mestizo, whatever, right? So I hope this was very helpful and can get you guys rolling. So